please send them to Al Jazeera's Your Media site, and that address is yourmedia.aljazeera.net. And don't forget our website where you can check for the latest news. That can be found at aljazeera.net/English. But Darren, before I go, I have to show you this great picture from Egypt. It shows some very happy newlyweds posing for wedding photos in front of an armoured personnel carrier in Tahrir Square. Joining thousands of protesters on your honeymoon, I guess, is a good way of ensuring your wedding is truly unforgettable. And that's it for me on the Egypt desk for now. Back to you.
Stephanie, thank you very much indeed. Let's get some other news now away from Egypt. Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to a ceasefire as tensions resurfaced over a disputed border region. At least 5 people died in 2 days of fighting close to a 900-year-old temple both sides claim as their own. Andrew Potter now reports.
Cambodian soldiers exchange fire with Thai forces on a section of border which has become a flashpoint between the countries. This battle coming minutes after both sides had agreed to a ceasefire following a clash on Friday which killed 3 Cambodian soldiers and a Thai villager. It's the latest flare-up in a long-running dispute over the area around a 900-year-old temple on Cambodian land. Thai nationalist groups are pressuring their government to take it back. This fighting lasted half an hour, and when the guns fell silent, at least 1 Thai soldier was dead and a dozen from both sides injured. The temple being fought over was damaged, along with several other buildings. Some villagers took what shelter they could, while the Thai government evacuated more than 3,000 people. Cambodia and Thailand have engaged in frequent firefights over the temple, but they've never escalated into all-out war. With both governments accusing each other of aggression, the United States has pleaded with both countries to defuse the standoff. Andrew Potter, Al Jazeera.
Heavy rain has continued to cause widespread flooding in eastern parts of Sri Lanka. The government says at least 5 people have been killed in flooding and subsequent mudslides. More than 80,000 people have been made homeless and are living in camps. More than 1 million people have been affected by floods and mudslides since January. Australia continues to feel the effects of one of the biggest ever cyclones to hit the country. The giant storm first struck Queensland, but its tail is being felt thousands of kilometres away in the southern state of Victoria. Wild weather lashed the city of Melbourne, bringing destructive winds and flash flooding. More than 175 millimetres of rain fell in just a few hours, also inundating rural areas. Kazakhstan's long-serving leader has shelved a proposed referendum which could have given him another 10 years in office. Instead, President Nazarbayev has called elections for April the 3rd. Opposition groups say it leaves them no time to prepare. The change of tack comes as Kazakhstan wraps up the Asian Winter Games. Robin Forrester-Walker now reports.
It's the largest international event ever hosted in Central Asia. Over $1 billion has been spent making the Asian Winter Games happen. Kazakhstan has forged ahead of its neighbours. International events like these Winter Games are a sign of Kazakhstan's growing prosperity, and most people tend to link that with their president.
President Nazarbayev making a lot of things, maybe developing Kazakhstan.
Nur Sultan is like an immortal in Kazakhstan.
Popular he may be, but after 20 years, President Nazarbayev has brought little democracy to Kazakhstan. His one-party parliament has instead tried to keep the status quo by proposing to hold a referendum to extend Mr. Nazarbayev's rule until 2020. But on Monday, the president did the unexpected.
As the first democratically elected president, and solely in the best interest of the country, I have decided not to hold a referendum. I am submitting a proposal to hold early presidential elections, despite it being 2 years before the end of my current term in office.
Critics say this is not a push in a democratic direction. Independent monitors have never judged Kazakh elections free or fair.
It's too pity that President Nazarbayev tried to save power, but he is not tried to develop here very strong political institution. I mean, for example, party system. I mean, our parliament.
Kazakhstan is a long way from Cairo. Stability and prosperity are a good tonic against popular discontent. But without the appearance of legitimacy, even President Nazarbayev may be wondering whether any regime is too big to fall. Robin Forestier-Walker, Al Jazeera, Almaty.
3 Pakistani cricketers have been banned for at least 5 years after being found guilty of corruption. The punishment was handed down by cricket's governing body at a tribunal here in Doha. Salman Butt, Mohammad Asif and Mohammad Amir were all charged with conspiring to bowl no balls during a test match against England last year. Rahul Patak reports.
Well, there were chaotic, almost jubilant scenes outside the Qatar Financial Centre as the 3 players involved attempted to leave earlier today following Saturday's decision. All 3 players essentially have been banned for 5 years each, but there's a real feeling here that the punishment handed down by Michael Beloff QC and his 2 colleagues could have been a lot more harsh.
The tribunal has recommended to the ICC certain changes to the code with a view to providing flexibility in relation to minimum sentences in exceptional circumstances.
Well, as for the players themselves, all 3 are said to be very disappointed with the decision, and Mohammad Amir, for one, has confirmed that he will instruct his lawyers to go ahead with an appeal. That will be heard by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Well, the next big date for the players is March the 17th. That's when they'll appear before Westminster magistrates in London, where they'll be accused of accepting and obtaining corrupt payments. Now, that carries a maximum jail term of 7 years, an extremely serious charge there. But as for the International Cricket Council, well, does this punishment that was handed out today really send out the strong message that they were looking for at the beginning of this tribunal? Well, I think the jury's still very much out on that. Rahul Pathak, Al Jazeera, Doha.
And Japan's national sport has been plagued by a match-fixing scandal of its own. 3 sumo wrestlers have admitted influencing bouts for thousands of dollars. And Japan's Sumo Association has now called off its March tournament. It's the first such cancellation in 65 years. Now, before we go, let's take you back to the Egyptian capital. These are the latest pictures from Cairo's Tahrir, or Liberation Square, where many protesters are still camped out. That's despite a push by the government to get people back to work at the start of a new week in Egypt. That's it from me. My colleague Sam Zaidan will be here at the top of the hour with more news. Stay tuned.
By 1999, a time for new beginnings was approaching. A new century and a new term for President Mubarak. He had already ruled Egypt for 18 years. And throughout this time, life had been moving slowly for its people, reflecting the gentle flow of the Nile. But the mood of Egyptians was now very different to the one that had welcomed Mubarak's assumption of the presidency in 1981. With a world of free media opening up in front of them, they were finding a new, more effective release for their frustrations.
The world is changing. We are changing. Our genes are changing. Media played an important role in this. Satellite TV, the internet, the mobile phone. Life isn't the same as it used to be. You can't keep things quiet now.
Satellite channels like Al Jazeera, which was founded in 1996, were challenging traditional media in the Arab world. Governments could no longer control what people were seeing or hearing. During a trip to Qatar in 2000, Mubarak asked to visit Al Jazeera. Shocked by the small size of the operation, Mubarak said sarcastically, "All this noise from this little matchbox?" After decades of no alternative but watching government-controlled media, Egyptians were being exposed to new perspectives on the world.
We had the media revolution. No regime could stop this kind of development. What's more, governments could no longer hide the mistakes or crimes they committed.
The printed press was also changing its form. An increasing number of newspapers were published by a younger generation hungry for change and openly rejecting the old political status quo. The government allowed its critics some space during this period.